Starting us off at number 10, we're going to be looking at the arthroplura. They are a few living animals that scare people more than bugs, insects, or spiders. The arthroplura can probably be an exception to this rule because, well, look at this thing. It's literally a horror movie turned into real life because this creepy crawler actually lived on Earth. I know if this was me, if I saw a centipede, I would be running super fast. I would probably be running faster than Usain Bolt. I don't know if I'd be able to handle seeing an arthroplura in real life. They're the largest known land invertebrates, and this is of all time, and it is highly unlikely that they had any predators. I mean, would you want to mess with that? No, I didn't think so. They can grow up to lengths of 8.5 feet, and even though they were herbivores, that doesn't make them any less scary. Just looking at all their legs gives me the creep, so let's move on. It's time to take flight. In at number 9, we have the Quetzalcoatlus. This prehistoric beast dominated the skies of North America during the late Cretaceous period. This creature was a type of pterosaur. Not to be confused with a dinosaur, it's a pterosaur. A lot of people believe that the pterodactyl was the most dangerous thing lurking in the skies, but they are sadly mistaken. That honor goes to the Quetzalcoatlus, whose wingspan was around 35 feet and weighed between 450 to 550 pounds, which makes them the largest creature to ever fly. Imagine if these animals were still alive today. They have the ability to pick up a fully grown male, so this would be terrifying. I would never want to leave my house ever again. When this creature is on the ground, it is equivalent to the size of a giraffe. I mean, is this real life right now? Scientists believe that they can reach altitudes of 10,000 feet and glide at speeds of 100 miles per hour. The smilodon fights its way to number 8. The smilodon is an extinct saber-toothed cat who lived between 2.5 million years ago to about 10,000 years ago. Just by looking at these images of this prehistoric animal, you can tell that they're pretty vicious. They're about 5 feet long and 3 feet high and weigh in at 440 pounds. But that's not the scary thing about these animals. I mean, just take a look at their teeth. That's enough to give you nightmares for a week. And for me, probably nightmares for the rest of my life. Their canine teeth would grow up to a foot long, and they had no problems taking down their prey. They would jump down on their prey from the tree branches, sink their teeth into their neck, and then leave its prey to bleed to death. Once they are dead, the smilodon would return to eat its carcass. Another interesting thing about these creatures is that they're often referred to as a saber-toothed tiger, but they weren't even tigers. They're actually distantly related to lions and cheetahs. Next up, number 7, we have the Gorgonops, whose teeth were too big for its own mouth. I know what you're thinking. This is a pretty scary looking beast. So why wasn't he in the Jurassic Park? Well, he isn't a dinosaur. It is a therapsid who lived 260 million years ago, which is way before the dinosaurs came onto this earth. So their name literally translates to dreadful, and I mean, looking at this picture, I would say this name is pretty damn accurate. These scary looking creatures were about 10 feet long and weighed in at 1,000 pounds. There isn't a lot of information about these animals, but scientists believe that they were a prime predator of their time because they were huge and had very sharp razor-like teeth that could easily slice through their prey. And even though they weren't as big as a dinosaur, they definitely would have scared other animals that lived during their time. Terrifying us, in at number 6, we have the Basilosaurus. Their fossils were first discovered in Louisiana, USA in the 1830s, and when the paleontologists were studying their fossils, they initially believed that these creatures were giant reptilian sea monsters, but they later discovered that they were wrong. The Basilosaurus can be translated into king lizard, but evidence shows that they weren't reptiles at all. Actually, they are prehistoric whales. This existed around 34 million years ago, and scientists believe that these creatures slithered into the water like a giant eel, except they were about 60 feet long with powerful back legs and a jaw that can easily snap its victims. And oh yeah, to make things even more interesting, they have a bite force of 3,600 pounds. Thankfully they are extinct because they would probably be hunting humans, but back in the day they loved to hunt fish and sharks in shallow waters. Slithering into number 5 spot, we're talking about the Titanoboa. For those of you who are terrified of snakes, yeah, it's time to get pretty terrified with this one. The Titanoboa is the largest snake that ever existed. They reach lengths of 50 feet and weigh 2,000 pounds. So to put that into perspective for you guys, they are twice as long and 4 times as heavy as the modern day giant anaconda. Paleontologists say that the Titanoboa hunted a lot like crocodiles do. They would lurk in the water and go near the water's edge so they can attack unsuspecting thirsty animals. They would strike their prey from the water and wrap themselves around them, crushing them to death, and they would put their massive jaws around them. This prehistoric snake lived in the jungles of South America 5 million years after the dinosaurs went extinct. Let's just say that I'm glad that the Titanoboa went extinct, because I don't think that humans and this monster could, coexist. Chopping its way into number 4, we have the Spinosaurus. The name is derived from its 7-foot-long spines, and it lived about 100 million years ago during the Cretaceous period. This terrifying creature is the largest carnivorous dinosaur that ever roamed the earth. Yep, that means that they were even bigger than the Tyrannosaurus rex. They could grow over 50 feet long, 20 feet high, and weigh in at 6 tons. One of its most distinctive features was this huge spine on their backs. These spines can grow up to 5 feet tall, and the Spinosaurus uses this as a way to intimidate other predators and also to show off to a potential mate. Yeah, I think that would be highly effective. I mean, I definitely wouldn't want to get into a fight with one of these things if they're still around. Biting its way in at number 3, we have the Mosasaurus. This aquatic Godzilla-looking like creature was not a dinosaur. Technically, the Mosasaurus was a meat-eating reptile. It lurked in the waters of the North Atlantic Ocean. The largest Mosasaurus species grow over 50 feet long, and they lived at the surface of the water in order to breathe air. They would basically feed on whatever was edible or any animal that was unfortunate enough to cross their paths. This meant that they ate fish, also plesiosaurs, and even other Mosasaurus. Let's take a look at their mouths. They had terrifying jaws. They actually have a second pair of teeth in its upper palate so that the prey that was able to slide down their throats wouldn't be able to escape, and their jaws could expand to help swallow their prey whole. I mean, what? Their closest living relatives are the Komodo dragon and monitor lizards. Stomping its way, number 2, we have the Gigantosaurus. It roamed Argentina during the late Cretaceous period, which was about 97 million years ago, and it is known as one of the largest meat-eating dinosaurs. These scary-looking beasts were 40 to about 43 feet long, weighed nearly 14 tons, and had very sharp teeth. These guys walked upright on 2 large and powerful legs, and they might have been very agile because of their tail. The Gigantosaurus didn't really have any natural predators because of its size, and they had the capability of killing any live prey that crossed their paths. They had flat, serrated teeth that were also helpful when they would slice through the flesh of their prey. There is even evidence to suggest that these dinosaurs were pack hunters and they would hunt in large groups. Okay, finally making its way to number 1, we've saved the beast for last. We're talking about the massive megalodon. This prehistoric monster makes the great white shark look like a goldfish. Luckily for humans, this beast went extinct 2.6 million years ago. The megalodon was the largest predator that ever lived. Paleontologists predicted that the megalodon can grow up to 60 feet and weigh over 60 tons. Oh, did I mention that their teeth can grow over 7 inches long? The megalodon's diet mainly consists of whale and other large sea creatures. They had a bunch of savage hunting strategies such as ripping apart and biting off their prey's fins in order to immobilize them so that they can attack them from below. They had a bite force of 10.8 to 18.2 tons, which was way more than enough to easily crush the skull of a prehistoric whale. So you must be wondering, how did this large predator go extinct? Well, no one knows for certain, but scientists believe that their population decreased due to global cooling, or by the decline in the population of the giant whales, which made up the bulk of their diet. But some people still theorize that the megalodon still could lurk at the bottom of our oceans. I mean, a big percent of it, we don't even know what's down there. So next time you're considering going deep in the ocean, you might want to think twice about what could be lurking below. It could be the megalodon.
In at number 10, we have the Tanystropus. That's right, the Tanystropus. Now this is a giant reptile that was around 6 meters long, so 20 feet. Now literally half of this size is neck. These gangly critters date back to the mid-Triassic period, so around 232 million years ago, and their skeletons have interestingly been found in both China and Italy. These honeys have like stabilizing back muscles so they can swing their neck back and forth, like Willow. I whip my neck back and forth. No, I don't know. They look weird. I love them though. Next up, we have the Hesperonychus. I think I said that right. It's difficult. Now you've gotta love this little fellow. The Hesperonychus looks like a cute but partially nightmarish cross between a chicken and a crocodile and the demon headmaster. Never smile at a crocodile, and no need to smile at a Hesperonychus either, because it will do the smiling for you. That's right, the crazy-eyed, murderous smile coming to get you. Now the Hesperonychus is a carnivorous dinosaur, so literally may be giving you the smile because he literally wants to eat you. He's going to kill you. This little chap was discovered in Alberta, Canada, and is thought to date to the late Cretaceous period. In at number 8, we have the Trodoon. Now the Trodoon kinda looks like a Vegas showgirl with the sassy leg and feathery arms, and I think that, you know what, they look really cute. Now this dinosaur is from the Campanian age of the Cretaceous period and was around 3 foot tall, so like this size, 3/5 my size? Yeah, it's a good size. Now their bones have been found all over North America, as far north as Alaska and as far south as Wyoming, with possible bones being found in New Mexico. Now they had a very long, slender hind limbs, suggesting they were able to run very quickly, and they also had huge, bulging eyes. Freaky. Now if you thought that these dinosaurs were stupid, you would be wrong. There's actually evidence to suggest that the Trodoon had the biggest brain to body ratio than any other dinosaur. Wise. At number 7 we have the Northronicus. Yes. Now look at this major babe of a dinosaur. This chap has long claws and a furry pot belly and can't decide whether he'd like to be a yeti, a bird, or a dinosaur. Now the Northronicus was the first ever breed of dinosaur to be discovered in North America, which is pretty exciting. Now this dinosaur is a theropod, so from the same family as the Tyrannosaurus and the raptors, but this furry beast seemed to have enjoyed a herbivore diet. Everyone's best friend. In at number 6 we have the Coolindodromus. Yeah, I mean, that's how we say it. The face and posture of a bird, but with the tail of a reptile and creepy little withered legs. So from Jurassic era Russia, this dinosaur is a feathered bipedal runner, and it was approximately 1.5 meters in length. It had a short leg, short forelimbs, long hind limbs, and a long tail. Can you imagine seeing this thing running at you like meep meep? This dinosaur threw up a level of confusion when it was discovered to be an ornithopod. Yes, I've said that right, ornithopod. And they were presumed to be exclusively scaly rather than feathery like this cheeky roadrunner. Either way, it sure is freaky. Flaps, thrills, horns ahoy. Next up we have the Cosmoceratops. Now this dinosaur was from near Utah in an age long before the existence of the United States. The Cosmoceratops was a late Cretaceous period dinosaur. Now look at its face. It's all adorned with like a crazy array of flappy bits, frilly bits, and horns. Why could it possibly look this way? Well, apparently this was to attract the opposite sex. Why hello there, sir. Could you take a dinosaur that looks like he's wearing a toupee seriously? I think not. In at number 4 we have the Concavator. First of all, great name. Second of all, great hump. This early Cretaceous theropod had a little triangular hump, and we don't know why. My other favourite thing about this dinosaur? Check out its forearms. They were surrounded by quill-like knobs that sprouted feathers during mating season. At none other sexy times of this year, this dinosaur was a scaly beast. Now the Concavinator is thought to have been around 6 meters long and was discovered in Spain. And now because of its sexy arm feathers, I can't help but think of doing like a little Spanish sexy dance when it's trying to mate. It's like, woo, ladies, come here to me. In at number 3 we have the Gigantoraptor. Yes. Now I blooming love a 6 foot tall dino bird. The Gigantoraptor is a giant theropod dinosaur from what we guess is the Santonian age. Fossils from this big bird have been discovered in Mongolia, and it was thought to be around 8 meters long and weigh around 1,400 kilograms, so that's over 2 tons. Now this dino bird had long claws, a beak, hilariously feathery arms, and a feathery tail. By all intent and purpose, you should have been scared by this dinosaur because of its sheer size and weight, as well as its claws and implied agility from its physique. But seeing this giant running chicken would have been hilarious. It would have been like, I'm gonna kill you! In at number 2 we have the Linhenicus. Now the Linheenicus is a theropod dinosaur from the late Cretaceous period and was found in Inner Mongolia, China. Now this genus dinosaur gets part of its name from the Greek word nikos, which means claw. Now being named after its most hilarious feature is kind of cruel. Look at those teeny tiny claw hands, like I feel sorry for it. Now this dinosaur makes this list because, let's face it, it's a bit of a freak. Now T-Rexes had short and pointless arms, but this is by far taking it just a little bit too far. Look at these poor excuses for arms. How would this dinosaur fight? It'd be like neck nudging its enemies and then like Yeah. Now the Linicus is only a couple of feet long, so it's like maybe this big, which means its claws would have been only this big, which makes it kind of cute. So guys, we have reached that all important moment in our most amazing top 10 weirdest looking dinosaurs, and the number 1 is by far the most ridiculous and also has the hardest name to pronounce. So, excuse me while I try. In at number 1 we have the Epidexipteryx. Yep, the Epidexipteryx. So when I first saw a picture of this absolute goon of a dinosaur, I just cracked up laughing, because Honey looks like she's been to the salon, is waiting for her nails to dry, and like doesn't want you to look at her hair. So this dinosaur is a bird-like dinosaur from the mid to late Jurassic era and lived in Mongolia, China. Now this dinosaur represents the earliest known example of ornamental feathers in the fossil record. I mean, look at this hilarious excuse for a dinosaur. The colour and the sass of the whole thing is epic. Now according to paleontologists, the species could be quite predatory. So do you want to know what the most hilarious thing about this official dinosaur? I will tell you. It was only 44.5 centimeters long, so 17.5 inches, including tail feathers. Now it would weigh just 164 grams. So if you angered this predatory bird, it would be like a teeny tiny thing just coming at you.
Starting us off at number 10 is Megalodon, a shark. Alright, I know I said these would put a shark to shame, but that means we just have to start with a shark. This is the big one, you know what I'm talking about, the Megalodon. So its size was 40 feet minimum and a maximum of 50 to 70 feet. For comparison, a bus is 45 feet long, so it's way bigger than a school bus. Some estimates say the Megalodon ate 2,500 pounds of food a day, and that included fish and whales. Their teeth were built for breaking bone, and their jaw was so strong it could exert a bite of up to 40,000 pounds of force. Yeah, while the great white shark of today targets the soft underside of prey, the Megalodon probably went straight for the chest to pierce the heart and lungs of its prey. While there is no proof at all that the Megalodon exists today, as there are larger whales and creatures like that thriving, there is also no evidence that definitively points to its extinction. So I'll leave you to do your own research on that one. Investigate. You never know. At number 9 we are staying in the scary waters with Basilosaurus. So Basilosaurus means king lizard, and this is odd because it is a fully aquatic mammal, but it was given the name when it was thought to be a reptile. While it is too late to change its official name, I propose we call it a sneeze snake. Hopefully the cute name lessens the amount of fear running into one would give me. So the Basilosaurus lived around 40 million years ago. It could grow to 60 feet long and probably swim like an eel because of its tiny little flukes. But don't let the little flukes fool ya. It was the largest meat eater of its time. Look at the teeth on that thing. I bet it could have swallowed a submarine whole, honestly. Just all of these I wouldn't want to run into. I'll probably mention that more. Yeah. Moving on to number 8, Pterygotus. So ever wonder what a distant ancestor of the modern day crab was like? Well, get ready, because it was a giant water scorpion over 12 feet long. They were around 420 to 400 million years ago. Their remains are mainly found in Europe, but some have also been found in North America. So this crabby guy was probably an ambush hunter waiting for its prey and then striking. It was capable of really fast bursts of speed and would use that skill in its attack. It would tear apart victims and then force the meat into its mouth with its mandibles. It is also said to have the stinger the size of a light bulb, and it's at the end of its long flat tail. I can't even deal with scorpions in real life, or crabs for that matter, and those are really small, so needless to say I'd be done for in this case. Plus it's like more than twice the size of me. I'd just be done. At number 7 we have the Dimetrodon. About 150 million years ago you could have run into this guy. It was a huge carnivorous marine reptile that lived in the seas that used to be over Europe. They were an apex predator, about 7 meters long and weighing in at over 3,000 pounds. Its head looks like a dinosaur-crocodile mix, but as its forefins show, this beast roamed underwater. Their teeth are what I find the most gnarly about them. They are sharp and jagged and look like they could absolutely shred through anything, including me. Yeah. At number 6 we have Ambulocetus. So it's a prehistoric whale that was amphibious, and yes, it had arms and legs. And if you're like, what? A whale with arms and legs? That is what I thought too, but this guy was evidence of a transitory period between land-living mammals and whales, aka proof that whales evolved from land creatures. That's why they're mammals and they breathe air. Boom. So Ambulocetus was the size of a male sea lion and most likely remained solely in the water and fed similarly to crocodiles. As in, they probably killed their prey by holding it in its jaw and either drowning it or thrashing it in violent motions. Fun. If you run into a crocodile, punch it in the nose or like put your fingers in its nose so it can't breathe, and then it'll let go so it can breathe through its mouth. Pro tip. On to number 5, Mosasaurus. So this one is known as the lizard of the Meuse River. It got the name after being the first specimen found near that river. It lived in the seas of Europe and North America, and it lived 70 to 66 million years ago. It caught fish, birds, other marine reptiles, and even sharks. It had a second set of teeth that latched onto their prey to ensure that they didn't get away, and it was just under 60 feet long on average, so huge. At number 4, we have Zygopheister. So this one was like a sperm whale or a killer sperm whale. It had a bulb like a beluga. Most likely that would let it do echolocation, like one of those jiggly melon heads. So as a prehistoric predatory whale, it had teeth in the upper and lower jaws, which is unlike today's large species like the sperm whale that just have the teeth in the lower jaw. The teeth were also rooted deep in the jaw, and they had a cone shape, which is one of the hallmarks of being a predator. Therefore, Zygopheister probably went after large and powerful prey. So imagine this roaming the waters, and you think it's a whale because its body looks like a nice chill animal, but then you see the face and it's nothing but teeth. Boom, it bites into a smaller whale and then a shark, and that's just absolutely wild to me. When I think whales, I think cute, fun, but no, not this one. At number 3, we have a giant ground sloth. And I know what you're thinking, sloth? Giant one would be pretty cute. Just like the one in that video where it gave someone a flower. Oh, a gift. But not this big one. The Megatherium, or giant ground sloth, lived in South America about 10,000 years ago. It weighed up to 4 tons and was about the size of an elephant. Yeah, picture that. While it was a leaf-eating lovely herbivore, it still wasn't safe. Just take a peek at those claws. And while there are depictions of it with fur or hair, since we associate that with sloths, they were most likely hairless. Like elephants, with mass comes more heat, and these giant ground sloths were probably prone to overheating. And to do that, they had to become hairless, and they probably looked a little bit like a sloth if you mixed it with a hairless cat. Moving on to number 2, Helicoprion. This was a shark-like eugenedontid holocephalid fish. All those fancy words are to say it had this scary looking tooth whorl. They are clusters of teeth coming out of it, and it was basically a tooth factory. Scientists had to make guesses on the anatomy and behavior of the animal because they didn't recover a full fossil of the being, which makes sense because it lived in the ocean so long ago, 290 million years ago. Today the closest living relative is the chimera, and that is a creepy looking fish too. But lastly, at number 1, we have the Titanoboa. So the anaconda pales in comparison to this bad boy. The Titanoboa snake lived deep in the South American jungle 60 million years ago, and thank goodness. It would snap a victim's neck in half with just one swift move. And what was the victim this creature found? Anything it pleased. It grew up to 50 feet long with a ribcage that was on average 2 feet wide. It could eat a whole crocodile if it wanted to. The muscles around the ribcage were so strong they could crush a rhino. Also, while scientists aren't sure how it killed, they agreed on one thing. It ate its prey whole. It stayed in muddy waters most of the time, where its brown skin would camouflage it nicely, and it also probably stayed there because it weighed so much the force of gravity could cause it to suffocate under its own weight.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have Spinosaurus. Let me start by asking you guys a question. What's the largest carnivorous dinosaur of all time? Surely it's the T-Rex, right? They've always been portrayed as the top dogs. Their name literally translates to Tyrant Lizard King. I was surprised to learn that it's actually the Spinosaurus, perhaps the largest known carnivorous dinosaur of all time. It lived about 100 million years ago. Estimates put the length of these things about 60 feet, while weighing as much as 23 tons. That's 3.5 times as much as the T-Rex. If its sheer size wasn't scary enough, you might have guessed from its name that it also had very big spines. They fanned out across its back and formed what is usually referred to as its sail. What scientists aren't sure about is if the spines were covered in fat and looked kind of like a huge camel hump thing, a camel the size of a small building.
Spinosaurus is a predator, but one that hunts in water. It's ichthyophagous, a fish eater.
Coming at number 9 now, we have the giant crocodile. That's right, if you thought the best way to make a crocodile even more scary was to give it more teeth, you're wrong. You just make them way bigger, and they really did exist. The scientific name for this animal is Sarcosuchus. They lived around 112 million years ago during the early Cretaceous period in what is now Africa and South America. These things weighed about 8 tons and grew up to 40 feet in length. It's almost twice as long as the biggest living crocodiles today. The giant crocodile would probably laugh at the crocodiles we have today. then it would eat them, then it would eat us, then it would laugh. Luckily, they died out over 100 million years ago. Next up at number 8 now, we have the walking worm. The scientific name for this one is Hallucigenia fortis. It was part of a family of walking worms. They looked like worms, they acted like worms, but they had legs, actual little legs. Get this, scientists discovered their fossils in Canada and China. They were so weirded out by their appearance, they called them hallucigenia, as in hallucinogenic, like hallucinogenic drugs. These things are so weird looking, the scientists basically thought they were tripping out. That's what I'm taking from that story. I'm thinking if normal worms usually creep people out a bit, then a big walking one that looks like it came from a Harry Potter book might be a little bit too much. Moving on to number 7 now, we have Androsarchus. Think of a big scary mammal. A lion, a tiger, maybe a bear. Oh my, this thing would eat them for breakfast. Androsarchus lived in what is now China about 45 million years ago. The only known skull of this creature was discovered in Mongolia in 1923. It's now on display in the American Museum of History in New York. It was from only this skull and a few bones that scientists were able to make an accurate construction of what this beast would have looked like. When they finished the model, they were pretty shocked to see that it would have weighed about 4,000 pounds. That would possibly make it the largest land-dwelling mammal predator ever. We're talking bigger than all the lions, tigers, and bears, oh my. If you don't want to step into a ring with any of those animals, well, those animals wouldn't want to step into a ring with this thing. Next up at number 6 now, we have the pig from hell. I'll admit, that's the name I gave it. You'll see why though. This mammal is known as the entelodon. They lived 37 to 28 million years ago all across Eurasia. If we were around back then, we probably would have said they looked like pigs, but like really terrifying ones. Despite being on all fours, these things were 4.5 feet tall. They were massive. Some scientists say they had a ravaging appetite for meat. These things would eat you, they'd eat me, and if there wasn't any of the meat around, they'd end up eating each other. You heard me right. Some people have suggested that entelodonts were actually cannibalistic. They craved meat so much, they'd even eat their own kind. How does that sound to you? Imagine one of these things charging right at you. You wouldn't stand a chance. You better hope they'd eaten their fill for the day, or you be the filling. Next up, number 5 now, we have the 3-foot-long scorpion. That is the scientific name, just kidding. This is actually Pulmonoscorpius. It looks just like modern scorpions. It had the same front claws and sting in its tail. The only difference is this thing was bloody massive. It lived over 300 million years ago during the Carboniferous period, and this helps explain why these things grew so massive. Back then, the oxygen content in Earth's atmosphere was a lot higher. Scientists know that this is one of the key factors in determining how big some creatures get. So if you don't like creepy crawlies, just be glad there isn't too much oxygen in the air. We know this creature had venom, like many modern scorpions, but it's difficult to know just how toxic it would have been. One thing's for sure though, you wouldn't want to stick around these things to find out. If modern day scorpions cause problems for us today, imagine these 3-foot versions running around stinging us. No, thank you. Moving on to number 4 now, we have the smilodon. I absolutely love this one. I remember watching a show as a kid called Walking with Beasts that featured this very animal. Check it out if you haven't heard of it. The smilodon lived from 2.5 million years ago to just 10,000 years ago. If you recognize the picture on the screen right now, you may know this creature by its much more famous name, the saber-toothed tiger. They were a force to be reckoned with. They had very well-built forelimbs and exceptionally big canine teeth. They spread out all over the world and came in a number of different types. The biggest ones were thought to have weighed up to 880 pounds. You might think, oh, well, I'm glad humans never had to live alongside these beasts. Well, think again. They did. Considering the saber-toothed tiger didn't die out until about 100,000 years ago, there were already modern humans, just like me and you, walking around back then. Many of them got probably eaten by these big cats as they had nothing more than a simple spear to defend themselves. They died so that we could live. I vote that we don't bring them back. Next up at number 3 now, we have the terror bird. That's the nickname given to Forus racidae, and I think the nickname suits it very well. They were the largest species of apex predators in South America for about 60 million years, starting 62 million years ago. That's a very, very long time. You can't even picture how long these things were the top dogs for. They were huge, standing up to 9.8 feet tall. They were flightless birds too. That's quite strange to think about about. We usually think of flightless birds as quite harmless. Dodos and penguins, maybe ostriches could give you a good slash, but generally speaking, it's the flying hawks and things that are the scariest. This creature will make you think twice though. The terror birds were big. They weighed up to half a ton. Okay, so maybe that means you can outrun them. Oh no. Probably not. It's thought they could actually run as fast as a cheetah. That's about 75 miles an hour. If you see a terror bird and the terror bird sees you, just give up. Accept your fate as its lunch. Coming at number 2 now, we have the giant bird. That's my name for it. The real name for this creature is Pelagornis sandersi. It's one of the largest flying birds ever discovered. It lived 25 million years ago during the Oligocene era. This thing was huge. You may think you've seen a big bird in your time, maybe a pigeon or a seagull. Nah, you've not seen a big bird. Look at the size of this. It had a wingspan of up to 24 feet. Its wingspan was bigger than a giraffe is tall. Just try and imagine that. Perhaps fittingly for one of the largest flying creatures to ever live, the only fossil of it was discovered in 1983 by construction workers at Charleston International Airport, South Carolina. And finally at number 1 now, we have Quetzalcoatlus. I'm not even sure how to start off with this one. Just look at this thing. This creature was a pterosaur. They lived alongside dinosaurs, but were very much their own thing. The Quetzalcoatlus was one of the largest flying animals of all time. It was toothless, it had a long stiff neck, and was just generally a bit of an oddball. Its wingspan was 52 feet. Remember the massive bird we were talking about just earlier? This creature had a wingspan twice that size. It's hard to even imagine how big this thing was. Ever since its discovery, people have been fascinated by it. It's been featured in documentaries and movies around the world. Perhaps the favorite one that I found is from Clash of the Dinosaurs. We already know that's wrong anyway, but wait till you hear this. The show portrayed them as having ultraviolet vision to locate dinosaur urine while hunting in the air. I'm obviously mocking this, but I do kind of want to watch it.